Hey TYT, I'm Nomiki here in Congressman Keith Ellison's office in Washington, D.C., where we're doing a quick little sit down and catch up about the state of Congress, the state of Democrats. What the heck is going on here right now?
What a week, Nomi. Let me just tell you, so yesterday the Republicans re-voted on their tax bill, and today we're supposed to be trying to vote to keep the government open, and we are fighting right now, and I actually don't know what's gonna happen as we sit here. But we are demanding that the Dreamers be in this bill to fix the damage done by the repeal of DACA, that the children's health insurance program be put in here where literally children could lose health care in the millions, today, after the 22nd.
Right.
And of course, there's a very dubious provision in there to not quite take care of our veterans.
What is that saying?
Well, there's a program called Vets Advantage, and the program is spending. It's kind of I believe it's a program, and in the best sense of the program, it's to help vets who live in remote areas go to private providers, not necessarily the VA. Right. If they don't live near one, that's an option for them. But my concern about the program is that Republicans just really want to privatize the VA.
Right.
And so the program has been way more expensive than it was supposed to be, and I think we should be putting money to strengthen the VA, not this private thing. But we're not really taking care of this program either. So when you look at the whole thing, they gifted the richest people in this country yesterday with this tax bill. And they are getting ready the Republicans are trying to push a bill that literally abandons Dreamers, kids, and veterans.
So is essentially this an entire scheme to privatize the country? Is this like disaster capitalism?
Yes, I believe it is. I can tell you, I love that you asked that kind of a question because, if you look to the regular mainstream media, you just get the horse race. But if you really want to get some understanding of what's happening, it's important to ask that question, like what's really going on? And what's really going on is you have Republicans who are really social Darwinists. That's what they really are. We call them Republicans, but remember, a political party is a vehicle. People get in it, they get out of it. The Republican Party has been taken over by these social Darwinists, and their attitude is the masses are asses, that it's all about the wealthy, and that the wealthy are wealthy because they're better, and they deserve because of their being better. And they act like that every day, right? You see them acting like that. And so this tax bill is actually right in line with their core philosophy that if you're not smart enough to be rich, then you don't deserve anything.
And of course, many of them are rich in Congress. Most are rich.
So here's the other irony. A lot of people believe, these Congress people are chasing campaign donations so they can fill their coffers, and they're trying to get rich people to support their campaigns. Sometimes, but some of them are in fact themselves rich people.
I passed Darrell Issa's office. He's the richest member of Congress.
That's right. So they're not chasing behind a rich person. They are the rich person, and the average net worth of Congress is well over $1 million. So I'm not one of those people. I actually survive on the salary the people pay me. But the truth is that this tax bill is going to benefit a lot of wealthy people, and who are in Congress and who are not in Congress. And you will remember Lindsey Graham and a few others were saying, well, if we don't get this tax bill passed, the donors are going to punish us. Well, I guess the donors are going to be rewarding them now.
Right.
I think that some enterprising activist needs to watch the FEC reports of everybody who voted for this tax bill, because I think they're going to get some money. But what's in the bill?
Yeah, what is it all about? It's a huge bill.
So
historic.
basically, you have people, Democrats and Republicans, who agree in principle that there should be tax reform. It should be simpler. Loopholes should be eliminated. You ought to be able to, the average person ought to be able to do their own taxes. And so things should be simplified. It should be less, more equitable. Everybody should pay something. There are reasons to push for tax reform. We completely missed the opportunity to do real tax reform. What we really did is just took an already complicated system and just re-engineered it to funnel money up toward the richest people. So 83% of the benefits of this tax bill will go to the top 1%. But that's just getting started.
83%?
83% go to the top 1%.
What is it right now, just so?
Oh, it's pretty hefty. I can't tell you I have the exact number. Let me see if you can get me that number real quick. But right now,
He's got a guy back there.
I got a guy.
It's great. He's got a guy.
You know what I mean? Everybody needs a guy. You got a guy too.
I do have a guy. Thank God.
But 60% of the benefit of this bill goes to the top 1/10 of 1%. So there's the rich, and then there's the super rich,
yeah.
and they are really getting over. Now, what's in this bill? So they wanted to get rid of the estate tax. They just doubled it. Right now, if you don't have
Scam.
only about 11,000 people are rich enough to have to pay the estate tax.
Right.
I mean, such a tiny percentage of people are rich enough to pay the estate tax. It's ridiculous. They also dramatically changed something called the alternative minimum tax. Now, the last time we saw Trump's tax returns was in 2005. If there would have been no alternative minimum tax, he would have escaped $31 million. But he didn't because of the alternative minimum tax. Now the alternative minimum tax has been shifted dramatically. Also, they're going to reduce the corporate income rate down to 21%. Now it's 35%. And so here's the other thing, Nomi. So there are these things called loopholes. These are ways that companies can escape tax. Now, they always said we're going to eliminate the loopholes and lower the rates and have basically the same amount of money but more equitably spread. They didn't eliminate any of the loopholes, but they did lower the rates. So the overall amount in terms of the money that the government will receive from corporate taxes, it can't do anything but shrink.
So there was no bargain here.
No bargain.
There was no back and forth. This was a bill that was stuffed down the throat of Congress.
Absolutely.
And it's incredible. What I don't understand is it's so unpopular publicly. I mean, you saw Paul Ryan on TV yesterday saying, oh, it's going to bring jobs from overseas. And he was called out by the anchor saying, no, that's just not true. And not only that, the public doesn't believe it. So knowing that the public this tax bill is, it's complicated, but the public gets that it's not helping them.
They get who's
American
getting helped
people.
and who's not getting helped.
Right. Like with that, how is it the Republicans? I mean, this is a gamble. I mean, they're going into 2018 with an unpopular president. How's it going to work?
It is a gamble, but I think what they hope to do is to get enough money to their wealthy donors to buy enough ads and TV, and so they can deceive and distort and distract. And they can try to suppress the vote. So, there's a guy named a famous conservative political thinker named Paul Weyrich. And Paul Weyrich back in 1980 said, I don't want everybody to vote. In fact, our conservative chances of electoral success go up as the electorate size of the electorate goes down.
Right.
And I recommend anybody get online and check out Paul Weyrich, because it'll let you know the conservative psychology when it comes to voting.
They want everybody to vote. I don't want everybody to vote. Elections are not won by a majority of people. They never have been from the beginning of our country, and they are not now. As a matter of fact, our leverage in the elections, quite candidly, goes up as the voting populace goes down.
They think they're going to shrink the electorate, and they're going to do a lot of TV ads. They can count on a certain percentage of folks turning out, and they're going to try to win that way. But I got to admire one thing about these guys. They will try to deliver for the people who they believe in, which is their donors. Democrats need to learn a lesson that when we get in power, we've got to pass the Employer Free Choice Act. We've got to fight for Medicare for all. We've got to fight for true net neutrality. We've got to fight for better minimum wage, overtime pay, and retirement security. These are the things we better fight for. Racial justice. We better reduce the amount of folks who are incarcerated for nonviolent offenses. We better protect the freedom of the press. They will push and fight for what they believe in, which is more money for rich people. We better learn that lesson.
So why do we start at the center? I mean,
Sure.
this is what drives so many people crazy, is after 2020, where our candidate, arguably Secretary Clinton, was really starting at the center and negotiating
2000
from last year.
Yeah.
Last year was
16.
2016. Instead of, unless she was being pushed by the platform, for the most part,
Yeah.
she campaigned from the center and was
True.
negotiating from there. I mean, that to me didn't make sense. But after this loss, after the Republican popularity has gone down so much, why is it that you still have these debates within the party over whether or not Democrats should support Medicare for all or any of the things that you just mentioned? Criminal justice reform.
Right.
Why are Democrats still accepting private prison money?
Why is this a thing?
Why is this a thing?
So why? Here's the why. It's because for some Democrats have a class bias. I'm sorry, not all, but some do.
And they're allowed to. I mean,
Yeah.
if the roles were reversed and it was some other Republicans, they pressure their members to raise as much money from the high. So on the Democratic side, why isn't there some sort of reverse of that?
Well, one of the things we're trying to do is reform the party. We're trying to realign the points of accountability. How? Grassroots. Grassroots is not just a winning political philosophy. It sets up points of accountability.
Right.
So that if you got elected by going to talk to Miss McGillicuddy and everybody who works in the factory she works in, and you got their votes and they know they sent you in, then when you run, they're going to ask you some questions about what happened. Now, but if you don't talk to Miss McGillicuddy at the shirt factory and you spend all your time at the country club, then they are going to ask you why they should support you again as well.
Right.
But your line of accountability will be to them. And they don't care what milk costs. They don't even know. They just tell somebody to make sure the refrigerator is full. They don't care what rents are. They have 8 houses, and so life's just different for people based on class. But why is it that the Dems are still in these battles between a truly democratic economic message and sort of a corporatist, centrist corporate message? I think it's because you have people who believe in essentially some version of neoliberal economics.
How does that play out in Congress? I mean, what is, we kind of blanket the Democratic Party as still being controlled by the neoliberal.
It isn't.
People.
That isn't true. I mean, people who say that, I think that they haven't examined things close. I mean, look, we got 70 plus people in the Progressive Caucus, all who believe that we need to have an economics that works for Americans. We should not impose an economic philosophy on them. We should listen to them and then set up an economic philosophy around what serves them.
Right.
And so that's where I'm coming from, right? Somebody says, oh, should the Democratic Party go left or right? What about going down to the grassroots?
Yeah.
Well, how about that? Because if we do that, then we'll find out what people need and we'll fight for that. And some people may call it what they want to call it. We call it democracy. But there are other folks who feel like, well, you gotta please the donors, and the donors don't want to hear any of this stuff about minimum wage increases and health care for all, and they don't want to hear that. So we're in this tug of war. But I will say this, everybody in the Democratic caucus is going to vote no on this tax bill. And we already did.
Right.
Everybody in the Democratic caucus is going to vote no on any continuing resolution that excludes DREAM Act and CHIPS. So it's not like we have, any Paul Ryan types in the Dem caucus. We actually don't. But we do have a diversity. We do have folks who have different levels of viewpoint. There are people who say we can't raise the minimum wage because small businesses will get hurt. I say if you raise the minimum wage, small businesses will sell more stuff. So we do have these different philosophical positions. But we're all one party. In America, we have a 2-party system. So we've all got to try to figure out how to get along within these 2 big buckets that are offered for people.
How does that play out for 2018, though? I mean, you're involved in the Democratic. What are you, the vice chair?
I'm
you're the
chair.
deputy chair. Excuse me, of the DNC.
Yeah, as a deputy chair, let me tell you, I think the way, we're pushing for grassroots engagement. We want to be accountable to Miss McGillicuddy, Miss Johnson, and the folks who work at the factory. We want to be accountable to them.
So what does that look like? I mean,
What
when
that
you say
looks like
grassroots.
is, in Alabama, we put about $800,000 on the ground, no television. DNC put their money in field campaigns. And we didn't get some kids from DC to get on a bus and go down to Alabama. We hired Alabamans to do the field program. We put $1.5 million into Virginia on the ground. We put money into municipal races all over the country, from Vi Lyles in Charlotte to Fayetteville. And here's the thing, nobody thought we were gonna do well down ballot in Virginia. We did very well.
All over the place, though.
All over the place.
From socialist to neoliberal.
All of that.
Yeah.
And we won them all, right?
Yep.
We won them all. But so that's what it looks like on the ground. A program, a politics that says we believe in liberty and justice for all means that we are accountable to the all. Means that we got to talk to the all, right? It means that we're not going to be found too much in the country club. We're going to be found more on the block and in the VFW hall, than the Union Hall, in the church basement. That's where we will be found, campaigning, talking to people, working on getting folks energized and excited about their country and the future of this country, particularly in this most perilous moment when, we got Trump in there who is against every value that we hold dear.
So some of the other things that have been brought up in the past couple of weeks in Congress and voted on, net neutrality. I mean, we are an internet-based media company, as you know.
Oh yeah.
So I'm personally freaking out. How is this going to affect everything? The democratization of the internet as a tool of democracy, has become so powerful. And
there's some people don't dig that. So here's the first thing about the internet. Lesson number one for me about the internet. It started with a government program. That's how it starts. Program called DARPA, which is the defense program, starts the beginnings of what we now know as the internet. Went from there to more government support. And the earliest designers of the internet were people who were excited about the same things you're excited about, Nomi. They wanted to get democratized communication, connect people all over the world, literally with a click, And that's what they had in mind. But then, the big money boys, as they usually do, and they generally are boys, not all the time, said we can make money off this. And so they started doing what they do. And this kind of culminated last week at the FCC under the leadership of Ajit Pai. The FCC said, guaranteeing that we're going to have some rules on the road and we're going to make sure that everybody can use the internet. We're not so much about that. We're gonna make a more Wild Wild West kind of thing, fewer rules, less accountability, less government oversight, so that the bigs can dominate everybody else, so that the big ones they can throttle, can block, and can kind of just, or can say we're going to prioritize you if you're gonna pay us more, deprioritize you if you're gonna not pay us more, and if we happen to not agree with your belief system, throttle you a little bit. I mean, given the Hobby Lobby decision, you can easily see how some internet service provider who thinks that a woman shouldn't have a right to choose can just sort of throttle that message. And in fact, NARAL has been a victim of it, of this thing. I mean, we've seen this happen already. The ACLU points out that it's not just a hypothetical, that earlier this year, Verizon tried to block text messages that NARAL was sending to its members. So
why?
Because they don't like what they're saying.
Verizon, a publicly traded company
that benefits from the public support in a multitude of ways, is doing that. Yeah, I mean, but see that's the name of the game down here. I mean, the only people who aren't allowed to benefit from government help around here are working class and poor people. The rich people, the Republicans got no problem with rich people slurping at the government trough all they want. They can do it as much as they want, and nobody says anything about it. But if you happen to be working hard for a living, or looking for work, or too sick, too poor, too young, too old to work, then you shouldn't get government help. But that's nonsense. Net neutrality is essential. And here's the other thing. The net should be regarded as a public carrier. That is the way, like a utility, a public, and that's the way it should be legally positioned. That means we can keep it open, we can keep it regulated, we can make sure it's fair. Once it is just out of that realm, it's just open for commercial exploitation, and they could use it any kind of way they want.
So how can we, I mean, is there a path to reversing this decision? Will
Yes,
it go before Congress?
Yeah, well, one way to do it, reverse it, is win some elections.
Oh, it goes back to Democrats actually winning
Right.
again, right?
Well, so that means we got to get on the ground. We got to organize. We got to organize. The other way is that there's a court challenge to what the rule that was just passed by the FCC. So we may get some rhythm there. But the main thing is for people to raise their voices. I mean, Ajit Pai, who is the chair of the FCC, his core philosophy is, if you regulate business, that's just more costs on business. And if you don't regulate them, they get to keep more money. And they'll spend money on areas of the country that have less access. They'll spend money on building infrastructure. They'll put money into infrastructure and innovation. This is never true.
Right.
It's never been true. It's not true. And but that is what his philosophy is. He's wrong, but it's not like he's dumb. He's a very smart person. He just is Machiavellian, and he's a social Darwinist. He thinks the masses are asses and the rich deserve because they're rich. That he believes that. He's an Ayn Randian philosophy, and that's where he's coming from, just like Paul Ryan, just like all the rest of them.
So when does the net neutrality, I mean, it's been ruled on, but when does it take effect?
I'm not sure the exact date. Do we know when the net neutrality thing, it's coming up quick. Now there is something called a CRA, which is, Congress does have to pass on this kind of stuff. And so, coming up in like January, February, where it's going to be quick, we'll connect with you we'll get those dates for you, because that's actually a good question. We want to share that information with people because, I'm going to tell you, activism works, man. I mean, activism helped stop the repeal of the Affordable Care Act. It didn't help. It didn't stop the tax ripoff, but a lot more people know about the tax ripoff than otherwise would if we would have just not. Our activism helped create public awareness.
But it also wasn't a single industry vote. I mean, Obamacare, repealing Obamacare. I mean, it wasn't a single industry, but it was a smaller group of interests invested. Whereas the tax bill is
this sprawling thing.
Everything.
But the thing is, if you repeal the Affordable Care Act, people are going to take direct losses from that. This is a little bit more like how people don't really know how it's going to affect them yet. It's going to hurt them. I'm here to tell you, but average people don't really know what the suffering is going to be. They know it's wrong. They know it's bad. They know it's not written for them. But how many people let's hire somebody else to do their taxes? A lot. So it's just it's a little more complicated, but the activism did one important thing. It helped people understand who was on their side and who was against them. And they know that, and they're going to vote on that.
In terms of net neutrality, I mean, it seems like it would be a very smart thing for the Democratic Party to mobilize on, given how many young people are aware and conscious of what net neutrality is, how it makes a difference in their lives.
So true. Well, the Democratic Party should do it because it's the right thing to do.
That too. Strategically, though.
but then strategy does matter, and you are right. Strategically, young people really get this. They really do. And they're just offended because young people know that the best, most innovative ideas, organizing on the ground, all these things that they do depend upon a free, open internet.
Right.
And they believe that it should be. So I do think strategically that is right. The Democratic Party needs to be out front, leading on this, and we're trying, but we need to do much more. There's no doubt, and that's one of the things I want to share with you is that a lot of times we're fighting for the right things, but our megaphone's just too quiet. We need a megaphone that can really blast a message out, really organize and mobilize large numbers of people. That is one of the things I think it's critical for the DNC and Democrats generally to work on, because Fox News is 24/7, lies, deceit, distraction, distortion. And then you got St. Clair News Media, does it all the time on the radio. Conservative, the neoliberal slash social Darwinist types do get the importance of message and propaganda. I don't think we understand nearly well enough how critical it is to help people understand what's going on.
Well, and moving forward into 2018, it just seems like there's such a prime opportunity to do that, and especially, I mean, if net neutrality somehow miraculously remains, there are tremendous opportunities to take that message if the Democrats can figure it out. I mean, Democrats have the numbers, they have the future, and this neoliberal argument it's not working anymore.
Oh no,
People
it's not working for anybody.
understand it.
Well, this is why we not only do we have the opportunity for regional and national coalitions, we got the opportunity for international coalitions because neoliberalism is hurting the whole country, the whole
Jeremy
world.
Corbyn, you've got
Yeah.
Syriza, Podemos. Yeah.
People are they're thinking about this. They're rising up. They want to change. But I'll say this, it all's got to start with the relationship. It's got to, what the Democratic Party is relearning now, and we are, is that the basis for democracy is me talking to you, you talking to me. You cannot ask a TV ad a question. You cannot ask a TV ad its opinion. You can't ask it for more information. And most of these ads are negative anyway, which, by the way, are designed to press down on turnout. I personally believe no Democrat should ever do a negative ad. It might help one Democrat one election or two Democrats in two elections. But overall, we need to be trying to increase participation, not dampen it. And Republicans are the ones who need to dampen participation. And so for them, negative ads work. Smear tactics work because what they do is they turn people off to the whole process. What we don't understand is that when we do those negative ads, people don't read it as, oh, this guy's a bad guy. They just read it as it's just a bunch of stress, and I already had a stressful day. And what else is on? And that's kind of how people feel. We need to be talking about what we're going to do. We need to be talking about how great this country could be, how great it is. We need to be talking about what our future could be if we join together. We need to be fighting back on the ugly messages of the Republicans, which is that we should be divided. Men versus women, people of color versus whites, whites and people of color versus people who don't have papers. Religious, shouldn't like the Muslims. I mean, that's what the Republicans, why do they push that division? Because they know that if we're united, we beat them.
And so but that goes back to this point of economics. There's this internal fight within the Democratic Party of should we focus on identity politics, not even just identity, like guns, reproductive rights, are these purity tests. And to me, it seems like it's pitting communities against each other rather than talking about economics, which even Republicans want Medicare for all.
My idea about this whole thing is that let's start from where we all agree. You ought to be able to make a decent living. Let's start from where else we agree. Everybody deserves respect.
Right.
Let's start there. My thing about, is that I don't really believe that people conceive of a choice between social issues, which includes like identity politics type stuff, versus economic. Because here's the thing. As a black woman of color, you're among the poorest people in the country. So your problem is not you are being hit on the basis of your identity, and that is leading to your economic diminishment. What if we talked about a better economy for everyone, including black women, all women, communities of color, white men? I mean, and then here's the other thing. You might think the opioid thing is more of a social issue. It so happens that the big corporations have been pushing these pills. You might think of the guns as more of a social issue. So happens that Glock and Smith & Wesson and all them are pushing the bump stocks and all this mess. Full disclosure, I am a hunter. It's a family tradition, but I am more than happy. I don't own any handguns, but I'm more than happy to do a background check if I wanted one. This is not about taking your guns. That's ridiculous. This is about Do you want people to commercially exploit fear so that people go buy a bunch of guns and solve every problem they have with guns, including disputes on the job, being pissed off about society,
Including Sarah Palin's family.
Sarah Palin's, and so,
Seriously.
But at the end of the day, they've connected, rural white
Right.
identity with guns. But the point is, these big companies want to sell more guns. This ain't about you hunting with your uncles on the weekends. This is about them selling you more stuff. And so get it. You got to get what's going on here. So much of people who suffer because of their identity, because of racism, sexism, and all that stuff, it has a commercial origin. Even American racism. How did African Americans get here and why? They were workers,
Right.
forced to come here and work the Southern economy, the agricultural economy. It was essentially financial and economic. What about Native Americans? Oh, well, we want their land. What is that? That is an economic thing. You can talk about every identity through an economic lens, and we should. In fact, if we don't, we're missing the point. Even this, we've been talking about sexual harassment recently, and you could look at it as men behaving badly. And you can and you should look at it that way. Look at it this way: women paying an extra tax on the job, so that you could say that the predominant economic and cultural system says, look here, men, we'll allow you certain privileges vis-a-vis women. Right. So there's an economic angle to it, just like reproductive health has an economic dimension to it, just like all these things. So we shouldn't bifurcate them. We should look at them in a holistic way. We should look at them together. It's not an accident that in the 2008 financial crisis, black wealth was totally ripped off. Well, those are the folks who just bought houses. Those are the folks who the government didn't protect. So we cannot look at these things in isolation. We need to look at them together. And in economics and identity, I believe the Democratic Party, at its best, stands on 2 feet. One, economic justice for all. Roosevelt concept of economic justice. But on the other foot is liberty and justice for all, right? That you can be female, person of color, Muslim, whatever you want, and you will be treated with respect, dignity, and equality in this society. The Democratic Party should always stand for both of those things, and we don't have to really choose.
I think our audience probably agrees with this very much so.
Yeah.
And hopefully, that is being your influence on the DNC that's spreading.
Well, that's what we're there for.
You look at the wins and the margin of wins, which
Yeah.
is what I'm paying attention to, and the people, whether it's Christine Pellegrino flipping a Trump district in Long Island 40 points.
Isn't that great?
Amazing on an economic union message, or
You know it.
Or Randall Woodfin in Alabama.
Or what about Danica in Virginia?
Exactly. I mean, you've got these.
Interesting thing
convergence
in terms of
issues.
identity. Danica is a transgender woman. Danica obviously is proud to be trans, but Danica talked to people about their lives, their family, their educational system. Danica did not. Danica was like, "Look, I am more than just my trans identity. I'm also a consumer. I'm a worker. I'm a member of a society." And this is all we're really saying, that we need to look at people holistically. And one other thing about this, we do need, on that identity front, to help people from different segments understand that they've got to be allies of each other. Women should not be the only ones standing and fighting for equality, women's equality, and against harassment on the job. People of color can't be the only ones talking about racism. We've got to help white people understand speaking against racism is in their interest. We got to get straight people understanding that, hey, you want to marry who you love? So do they. Leave them alone. It ain't bothering you. Stand for people's rights. And so we've got to get a greater sense of solidarity. We've got to teach each other how to be good allies of each other.
Because, going back to the strategy, their strategy is to divide and conquer us. And as long as we're divided, we're not able to fight, the big orange monster who's just created a giant disaster capitalist.
True.
For our country.
Absolutely.
So what hope? Last question for you.
Yeah.
You're in Congress right now. Democrats have nothing. Are you just wasting time?
We're in the minority in the
What do you
House. We're in the minority in the House. We're in the minority in the Senate. We don't have the White House. And we are down in many state legislatures around this country.
Controls 7 states, I believe.
Something like that.
Democratic states in this country.
And yet, we've been able to fight off a lot of bad stuff. A very smart woman one time said to me, she was a state legislator like I was back in Minnesota. Her name was Mary Ellen Otremba. Mary Ellen Otremba from Aiken County, Minnesota. And Mary Ellen used to say, Keith, our constituents don't expect us to always be successful, but they do expect us to always be faithful. What does that mean? Be found fighting for what's right. Be found standing up for what's right. Be found working daily. That's really what faith is. Faith is, it might be in the middle of the night, but you know that if you keep working, the sun is going to come up. That's what it is. It can't just be when things are going great, then we'll work hard, and when they're not, then we won't. We need, and the most important thing any of us can do is to connect with a neighbor and talk about why we are enthusiastic about democracy, about our country, about letting the people decide their own fate and set the direction for the whole country, no matter how much money you have or don't have. That is where we got to go. So since 2008, we lost 900 seats in state legislatures. Since Trump got in, we've won back about 100.
It's a start.
It's a start. We've won. There's not one major city in the state of North Carolina that doesn't have a Democratic mayor.
That's fantastic.
That supposedly has been a red state.
North Carolina, yeah.
We have a governor. We have a Democratic governor in North Carolina, and we just won a Senate seat in Alabama. And it wasn't just because Roy Moore was a bad person. He absolutely is a bad person, but it's because we literally increased turnout overall, Democratic turnout overall, and Black turnout in particular. And we got engaged with Latinos in Alabama. Right. People think Latinos in Alabama? Yup. They're there, and they want a better future. In fact, it was when Jeff Sessions went to a meatpacking plant in Alabama and saw a lot of Latinos working there that he got on his racist kick that these people are taking our jobs. That's where his whole thing started.
How he figured it out. Wow.
Yeah. And so there's reason to be hopeful and optimistic. There's reason to do it, but it all starts with you making a connection with your neighbor. And we don't connect with our neighbors because we want to win the election. We connect with our neighbors because we live in a democracy and we care about our neighbors. So we want them to know what's going on. We want them to feel connected. And so that's why we do it. The Democratic Party is not really for only the Democrats. It is for the American people. We are on a mission for the American people. That's what we do. We're not a club, we're not exclusive, but at the same time, if you're not feeling the Democratic Party, that's okay. Work in the lane you want to work in, but be found organizing, registering, connecting, holding community meetings, holding, online chats, or whatever you can do. Just understand that you cannot exist in a silo, because if you exist in a silo, you're helping, the right wing that delivered Donald Trump.
That's what they want. It's inside outside strategy, as was said on the campaign over and over. Sometimes we're on the inside, sometimes we're on the outside.
Yep.
And there's lots of allies.
And understand that the VIP is not the politician, it is the activist. The activist is the most important person, not the politician. Politicians come and they go. Hold office for a while, leave office after a while. That's the way it is. But the forward movement of people demanding a better, more just country is constant. And we just got to keep that ethic in front of us and keep the fight moving forward.
Well, if there's anyone I know who fights, it's you.
Well, there you go. So hey, Nomiki, thanks for showing up.
Thanks for
Tell Jank and the gang I said hi. What's up, man? And you guys, thank you for just doing what you're doing. I mean, everything that you're doing, I think, is awesome. This idea, we got this thing called the Winning with Partners in 2018, and it's a program where the Democratic Party reaches out to progressive groups, not to try to take over anybody, because we know we couldn't do that anyway, but just to be in communication. Just to say, you're organizing voters over there, awesome. We're organizing them over there, also awesome. Of course, where we legally can't collaborate, we don't. But where we can, it's just good to know that there's going to be canvassing in this area, whether the Democratic Party does it or not.
Right.
Whether there's going to be training, whether the Dems do it or Wolfpack does it,
right,
or whoever does it.
Right.
But we got to train, though. That's the point. Not who, but what. And that's the key.
100%. 2018, hopefully.
All right, now. See you later.
Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye
Appreciate
now. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Bye, Facebook.